now, moving forward, if someone is recovering from Hashimoto's and from gut issues, what are some quick tips you would prescribe to them to, like, optimize their diet? Just some groundwork principles that we should abide by.
Yes. I always start with gluten and dairy because it is the biggest needle mover of pretty much anything that you can do on the nutrition side. And the reason for that is, and by the way, I always want to make sure that people understand, because I know there's a lot of hypothyroid women who are listening who are like, well, I don't think I have Hashimoto's, or I don't know if I have Hashimoto's. 95% of hypothyroid cases are caused by Hashimoto's. Most doctors won't test for it. So I just go in like, just assume you got it. So with Hashimoto's, your body is producing antibodies that are attacking your thyroid gland. Your body's viewing your thyroid gland as a foreign invader and is mounting an attack against it. So with gluten and dairy, the molecules look very, very similar to your to your thyroid tissue. So your body's viewing that as, oh, there's more of this foreign invader. We need a bigger army to mount that attack even more. And so when we have those antibodies rising, your thyroid gets caught in the crossfires and gets even more inflamed, gets even more damaged, makes it harder for you to produce that thyroid hormone. So just by removing the gluten and dairy, it can make a really big difference in bringing those antibodies down. There are some gluten cross reactors that kind of behave similarly, but that gets into a little bit more in-depth elimination diets that's looking at potatoes and coffee and oats and corn and soy and things like that. But I would say, like, start with gluten and dairy. And then the other thing that I would say, and this is the number one piece of advice I would give to anyone, hypothyroid, Hashimoto's or not, we all need to be eating more whole foods, less processed junk, and more plants. If you did that and the gluten and dairy free thing, like, that's going to get you really far in feeling better.
If I were to condense the full healing journey of someone with Hashimoto's or with like a bunch of gut issues, I realize there are phases to it, right? Like one might just be like a recovery phase where they're just trying to clean up shop, trying to, cut out the bad stuff, keep the good stuff. But from there, I know there's probably going to be some tweaks that'll be done to strengthen our guts resilience to be able, because I'm trying to think the habits that you needed to imbibe in the beginning, right? Like right after a sophomore year of college, they're probably a little different now for you, right? Like you probably have different eating habits altogether. So how do we roadmap that for each person, each client?
Yeah, so there is a sort of step-by-step phased out protocol that I put pretty much everyone through. And I think the like, if you're someone listening and you're like, I have changed my diet, I've tried all the things and I'm still not feeling better, you probably skipped step one. Because most people do. And step one is regulating your central nervous system. It is getting your body out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. Most of us exist in a place of chronic stress, whether we realize it or not. And by the way, like, if you think that you're someone, you're like, I deal with stress really well, like my life is busy, but I got it handled. You might, your brain might, your personality might bode really well with that. Your body does not care. Your body feels all of that stress day in and day out. And when you're constantly stressed and that cortisol is constantly high, cortisol is catabolic, meaning it breaks down our body's tissue to create energy for us. And so what happens there is that is going to inhibit healing. Like, you can do all of the diet changes that you want, but if you constantly have that breakdown happening, it's like you are slamming on the brakes when you're trying to get your car to go. So I usually will spend at least a month with my clients working on their stress management, working on their sleep, slowing them down a little bit, working on some of those foundational habits that are just really nurturing and supportive before we get into some of the more intense kind of healing protocols. And then with that, I always start with the gut, because everything has to start with the gut. It affects everything else. So we have to start there. Then I work on our liver. We need to make sure that our detox pathways need to be very clear, because what happens is when we have this sort of overloaded, overburdened liver, it's not able to clear out old hormones well. And then that can create its own sort of cascade effect of hormonal imbalance. And then, like, say you have constipation, which a lot of hypothyroid women do, because hypothyroid, everything slows down. Even if your liver is doing the job, and then you're not expelling those old hormones through your stool, then they can again get reabsorbed. So we need the liver and the gut working beautifully before we even look at hormones. And then that's one kind of where I go into the more optimization of the hormones after we do those two things. The other reason that we focus so much on the gut and the liver, 80% of thyroid hormone conversion happens in the liver, 20% happens in the gut. So the vast majority of hypothyroid women are on things like levothyroxine and synthroid. Those are T4 hormones, which are inactive. So you need your liver and your gut to turn those hormones on so your cells can actually use them. And many people are very bad at converting their thyroid medication, which is why you can be on medication and still feel like crap, which was my story for years. So that's kind of the trajectory that we take, is central nervous system, gut, liver, hormones, and then any kind of optimization, maintenance tweaks we need to do at the end.
So, Kat, I actually wanted to go two steps back when we were actually talking about the nervous system regulation. What are the certain tools and techniques we are sharing with our clients to help them get from this flight or fight state you're saying to this, I believe, rest and digest state?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, but there's a few of my personal favorites that I share with a lot of people. So, one of the fastest ways to communicate to your body that it's safe is through your breath. So, if you think about it, your body does not know the difference between different types of stressors. So, your body is just going to associate any kind of stress as like, there's a bear chasing me, even if it's just that you're stuck at a red light. So, when we slow down our breathing, it's a way of letting our body know, like, hey, I'm not being chased by a wild animal. So, and a lot of us kind of exist in this state of like short, shallow breaths, again, without even realizing it. So, one of the best, most effective breathing techniques for getting your body into the parasympathetic nervous system instead of the sympathetic nervous system, which is what we want, is, and you probably have heard Huberman talk about this if you've listened to that guy, but it is the physiological sigh. And so basically, you're going to take a long inhale through your nose, take a little extra gulp of air at the top through your nose, and then long, slow exhale through your mouth. Any breathing technique you do, you want to make sure that the exhale is at least twice as long as the inhale, because on that exhale, that slows down your heart rate, and that's what really helps your body get into that relaxed state. So the breathing in and of itself is good, but what I like to do is have people habit stack it on their meals. So basically, before each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I have them do this breathing technique for 1 to 2 minutes. And it's kind of a double whammy, because number one, it's making sure that 3 times a day you are slowing yourself down and getting into this relaxed state. But it's also actually going to help you digest that meal. Because what happens is when we're in that fight or flight, blood flow gets diverted to the limbs, getting literally prepared to fight or to run away. Versus when we're in that rest and digest state, as the name suggests, the blood flow comes inward towards our digestive system, so we're able to digest our food more easily. And I also just find that it slows you down, which allows you to really pay attention to your hunger and your fullness cues a little bit more easily. It gets you a little bit more connected to your meal and your body signals and things like that. So it's just a really beautiful practice overall. The other two favorites of mine are number one, super simple, taking a walk. It is one of the most effective things that you can do for getting your body into a relaxed state. Get away from the screens, get away from the noise, and just, even if it's just 10 minutes outside. They actually found, so there's a therapeutic practice called EMDR, which is really like incredible trauma therapy. And it was discovered by this scientist woman who was like walking through the woods and realized that her eyes were they naturally go back and forth when we walk. And that mimics the REM sleep cycle, which is when we process and sort of file away our experiences and our emotions. So when we mimic that, when we walk, it helps us to process the emotions of the day. And then the last one that is, it's really good, just if you've had a long day, you've had a stressful day, you know that your body's in that state, maybe you can't get outside for a walk, it's cold, it's whatever. This is a little, I kind of combine some things. So I will lay on my bed with my legs up the wall, because that helps kind of clear cortisol. I will do a self hug. So my right hand will go under my left rib cage. My left hand will go on my right shoulder, and I'll give myself a squeeze for 10 minutes. And I'll just turn some of my favorite music on and I'll hum. And so the self hug, that pressure around your body, is going to signal safety to the body. And then that hum, that vibration, is going to activate your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that connects your brain to your gut. And it's really good for, again, signaling safety to the body. Also really good for the gut and for anxiety and things like that. So lots of powerful tools to pick from.